Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sri Raj. I'm the director of the Urban Transportation Center. Thank you for joining us in this last and final webinar for the spring semester 2023. And we are delighted to have a speaker who champions the cause at the local level and beyond, and a topic that academicians typically don't get a peek into, that is advocacy. So we have Dave Simmons. He is the executive director of RIDE, Illinois, and he's going to be talking to us about a topic based on his career and his experiences. That's Lessons from a Bike Advocate. And you can see the title, the entirety of it on your screen here. Just a little bit about Dave. He was named the executive director of RIDE, Illinois back in September 2019. He's also a league certified instructor through the League of American Bicyclists as far back as 2009. And in the time between then and now, he's taught dozens of smart cycling classes. I'm curious to know what a smart cycling class is, just like the rest of us. And he's been a volunteer and has been an active participant with the Active Transportation Alliance, and has even been awarded the Advocate of the Year by Active Transportation Alliance in 2016. And before I turn it over to Dave and listen to his experiences, I would request that please mute your microphone. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat box and we'll have them answered by Dave either during the course of this session or later on the complexity of the question or the answer. So with that, I will turn it over to Dave. And Dave, the floor is all yours. Eager to listen to you.
Great. Thank you for that very warm introduction. I'm excited to chat with folks today, and it is nice to see so many familiar names as well as some other names on the call today. So yeah, the title is Lessons from a Bike Advocate, and I have to say it's 80 degrees and sunny in mid-April, and you all decided to hop on Zoom. So I'm not encouraging you to leave, hang out, because I do think this will be an interesting conversation, or I sure hope it is. Quickly want to thank the Urban Transportation Center, UIC, Edward Burry, Tim Grzykowski, my neighbor in Elk Grove Village, and then the folks that have joined us, friends, family members, students, other attendees. It's great to see y'all here. So really what I want to talk about in this discussion is my non-traditional path to my current role. I think that will be of interest. Again, I hope it is. I want to share some insight about the organizations that I'm involved with. And then offer some inspiration, maybe some positive vibes, so you can pursue your own ambitions. And you'll quickly recognize here, this is going to be pretty lighthearted, right? That's kind of who I am. So I want to keep this kind of lighthearted and fun and educational. So I want to start with a little bit about me. So the photo, I'm on the right there. This was with a friend. We're leaving from my home in the northwest side of Chicago, and we rode to Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin in 1990.
Dave, the slide is not advancing. If you meant to.
How about now?
No, still seeing the intro slide.
Let me stop sharing. Thank you for pointing that out. Good old technology, right? Looks like I'm going to have to jump out here real quick.
I think if you were to share from the app, as opposed to.
Let me try this. Okay. Apologies, everyone. Sit tight just a second. All right. We've got this open. You're missing that awesome photo. I'll tell you, it's totally worth it. Okay. And I'm going to try it again here just a sec. Why is it not showing my... Okay. It's not showing my browser here. You're not seeing anything now, I assume. This was not part of the plan. I'll try to open it in another browser here.
There you go.
Here, I don't know if Edward, I sent it to you, but that would be kind of hard for you to navigate as we go. Let me try one more thing here, and then hopefully we're good business here. Okay. Let's try this again, please. If someone could confirm.
We see the first slide. Okay,
You're
all set now.
All right.
Okay.
There's the picture, right? Wasn't it? It was totally worth it, right? So yeah, that was kind of the first bike adventure in 1990 with my sweet helmet, my high tops, and my cutoff sweatpants. So just a little bit more about me. I did grow up in the northwest side of Chicago. I'm a White Sox fan. This is important, and it will come up in further conversation. You can see some of the other details. I live in Elk Grove. I'm 50 now. I'm divorced, but my ex-wife, Sarah, is actually on the call today. Thank you, Sarah. A couple kids, in 23 and 21, including one at UIC, Bradley. And my bike is a 1994 Trek 820, which will come up in some photos. And then the last three bullet points are just kind of a little bit more about me and how I approach things. I'm not an in-your-face kind of person. I'm not the loudest voice in the room. And I am a product of empowerment. And the idea of following the path will kind of percolate through this presentation as well. So I want to talk a little bit about my childhood, my education, my career, and then some really awesome 1980s photos that I was able to include in this presentation as well. So when I think about my childhood, I want to refer to this family photo here, which is really that kind of prototypical 80s picture, right? With the goofy haircuts and the kind of odd smiles. I'm in the upper left, and that is my family, my parents, my older sister, and my two younger brothers. I wasn't involved in a whole lot as a kid, actually through high school for that matter.
Dave, if you have advanced to one more slide, we are still seeing the bike picture.
Why is this? Okay. It's a great picture. So it's still not moving?
No.
If
you want us to advance the slide, we'll be happy to. Oh, now it's moving. Yeah, there you are. Yep.
Okay. All right. I think I just need to advance in a different way. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So yes, the goofy 80s photo. Not really being involved in too much, though, was proudly the president of the Vikings Club on Indian Road in Chicago. So maybe I was a natural born leader. And I did play Little League Baseball. I want to point out the Cubs hat in this photo here, the one in the center. Not only was I on the Cubs, which was challenging as a White Sox fan, but then because my brothers were on the Cubs as well. So they hold that over my head to this day. And the book Stingray Afternoon. So those of you who are, my age, maybe a little younger, a little older, it's a great book. It was an unexpected gift from a childhood friend. And it's the stories of the 1970s, road trips in wood paneled station wagons, kids in the back singing along, consecutive hours of cartoons on Saturday mornings, and the Schwinn Stingray, which I did have a Schwinn Stingray. So it's a fun, nostalgic, kind of quirky look back at the 1970s and kind of live that life. All right, can you confirm that it advanced? If so, I think we're good.
Yes.
Okay. All right, awesome. So a little bit more just about my childhood. It seemed like I spent every waking moment in the forest preserves. Grew up across the street from a forest preserve that we called Indian Road Woods, but is now officially Ted Lekowitz Woods. It's on the northwest side of the city near Central and Elston. Every summer, one or two times, we made the trek as a family to the Botanic Gardens along the North Branch Trail. It was 35 miles. The Schwinn Stingrays had one gear, so there's a lot of pedaling involved. But and we experienced some interesting things along the way. Flat tires, for example. Dad had to drive home and get the car, while Mom and the kids sang 100 bottles of beer on the wall over and over at the Skokie Lagoons. But these were mind-blowing formative experiences, right? This was a bicycle and freedom. In later years, there were solo trips, and we kind of just kept going further and further north until we got to Wisconsin. So this is all in, kind of my mid-teens, and it got me thinking about how fantastic a bicycle is. And then my retail jobs, I put the Best Buy logo there. I worked at a couple other places, including was known as the Warehouse Club, not the dance club. It was a like a wholesale club. Working at those jobs, interfacing with the public, resolving issues, having to calm people down. They were confidence boosters for me, someone who's a relatively anxious, shy person. But they are also the formative experiences with different cultures and different people that I was not interacting with in my day-to-day in schooling. So it was really a wonderful, wonderful experience, even though it was challenging at times. So one slide about my career and personal development, and I won't read this for you. We will hold off on the photo, but I have a geography degree. I think myself and Michael Jordan are the only two who ever pursued geography. I worked for 25 years in educational publishing. If any of you took the Iowa and COGAT test, for example, when you're in school, those were developed by the companies that I worked for. Prior to that, I actually was making maps for Rand McNally. So I put my geography degree to good use. But the assessment, the Iowa COGAT, that industry is very deadline driven. We can't miss deadlines if schools are ready to test. It was high pressure. It was stressful. But outside of my day job, which eventually included people management, right? And if any of you are involved in people management, it's challenging, right? If you're a parent, you're involved in people management, right? You're managing your kids. So there's the good and the bad, but it was still, I think, of formative experiences, right? But then I got interested in things outside of my day job. So I was running what we called it was the Community Involvement Coalition, that's corporate social responsibility. I was leading our team in the corporate challenge, and I was just getting involved in things that were of interest to me outside of my day job. And then in addition to that, I benefited from two wonderful, wonderful managers who basically told me I could do things, right? That I mentioned now twice, a product of empowerment. This is important because if you don't have people always supporting you and telling you do things, you may not pursue things that are of interest to you or things that you value. And I did. I followed the path and I trusted the journey. And if you're skinny and tall and you work for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, you are the perfect fit for the man in the yellow hat. So here I am walking around a library, I believe it was in Schaumburg or Elk Grove, as the man in the yellow hat. So got to have a little fun with it too. All right. So local advocacy. That's kind of up until my 2010, 2015, raising a family is a demanding job. The day job was demanding. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about all right, well, how can I make a difference? Which I know may sound naive, but that's truly what I thought, right? I want to leave the world a better place than I came into it. So I want to talk a little bit about how I got involved in advocacy at the local level. And so my journey began in April of 2006. I have a note to cue the voiceover. We don't have a voiceover. And I just want to share a couple photos that bring us along on the journey. In 2006, I mentioned raising young kids. There really wasn't time to do the things that I enjoyed, or even such as getting out for recreational bike rides. So in the spring, I decided I was going to be commuting to work by bike a few times a week. I worked in Skokie at the time. So from Elk Grove Village to Skokie was 30 to 35 miles. So it's not something I was able to do every day. But it was really, it opened my eyes to the places I could go by bike, right? I'm going different places now. Then I got a job in 2008 in the assessment industry, and I was only 7 miles away from work. So all of a sudden I could ride year round, including, as the photo shows, in the wintertime. So for me, it was a combination of determination, stubbornness, maybe sprinkled with a little OCD, and I was able to do this year round. I committed to biking to work. The next major point in this journey is when I became a league cycling instructor, or I'll refer to as an LCI as we go on. So a league cycling instructor is someone who has gone through a certification course and has been evaluated and basically approved to teach smart cycling courses. So Smart Cycling is the program that League of American Bicyclists offers. That's their education program. So we're in this photo here is actually the first smart cycling course I taught with a neighbor and two folks who have become good friends since then. We were teaching how to traverse an intersection or where to position our bikes in a lane, how to stop quickly, all these skills that if you ride a bike, you may do already, but we're trying to empower folks to do them better and to be safer and more visible. So this in itself was a huge confidence booster. For the first time in my life, as far as I was concerned, I was an expert on something. People had to listen to me. I assumed they were going to listen to me. And since then, I have taught dozens of courses, including learn to ride lessons, one-on-one learn to ride lessons. And I know Gina, my coworkers on this call, and Kim, another LCI, they know the value and the amazing experiences to teach someone to ride a bike for the first time. So becoming an LCI was definitely a key point in my journey. And I kind of knew at that point that I had to get a job, something to do with biking. So 10 years prior to my actually taking the job, that seed was planted. All right. So in the meantime, the nights and weekend, the passion project was local advocacy, and FCEG stands for the Friends of Cycling in Elk Grove. And in 2012, we were established with the state of Illinois as an entity. I describe us as a ragtag group of bicyclists in Elk Grove Village. And we met to kind of say, like, hey, there's a thing here. What do we want this thing to become? We intentionally chose to be an advocacy organization versus a club, right? And a club typically focuses on the social, it focuses on the people that are in the club, whereas we wanted to focus on our community and how we could make things better within our community. And this was a key decision in our journey, and it continues to this day. We have members. Somewhere between 75 and 100 folks will become members every year, but we really focus on volunteer events and outreach events and community events. Our mission is to promote, support, and improve cycling in Elk Grove, and that has been the mission since 2012. And we did become a 501c3. That was a fairly intense process, but we feel like it was worthwhile because folks that donate to us, of course, can write off their donation on their taxes. And the photos that I share here, the one on the left is from what we call our Bussy Woods Bike Pit Stops, where we fill tires and we give helmets that are donated by the forest preserves. We give people lemonade and coffee cake, and it's really just a warm and fuzzy thing that we do once a month in the summertime at Bussy Woods. And then we donate bike racks. We've donated 12 to the community. So there's a photo of a donation to a business. And we attend community events to have a presence, to talk to people about the good, the bad, the indifferent when it comes to riding a bike. So that was kind of the origin story. A couple of points along the timeline that are worth mentioning is in 2014, the village adopted a bike plan. Our members and our volunteers offered expertise and really countless hours of our volunteer time as the plan was being developed. We helped to organize public input sessions. We provided our input and our recommendations since the plan has been developed. And then just last year, an updated plan was released. 95% of it remained the same, but there were some tweaks to routes and things that we had learned over the years. And then, so 2015, we had our Bussy Woods night ride. So if you live actually anywhere in Chicagoland, the Forest Preserve District trails are closed at dusk, right? They're closed between dusk and dawn. So when we said we wanted to do a nighttime ride of Bussy Woods, we were looked at as if we had, 3, 4 eyes. We had to pitch the idea multiple times, eventually going all the way up to discussing it with Arnold Randall, who was, I think he's the general counsel, general superintendent. That's it. The Forest Preserve Police, emergency, EMTs, that kind of thing, to make sure that they knew it was going to be a successful and safe event. So what happened in 2015? Our first 3 events took place and coordinated with the Friends of the Forest Preserves. They kind of left and went on a different path. And so we've offered the last 4 on our own with just our local org with assistance from the Forest Preserve District. And I'm happy to report that the last 3 have sold out because there is a cap. And if you're not doing anything August 26th this year, we'd love to have you come out and join the night ride. So all of a sudden we had money, right? This is pretty important. We literally looked at ourselves like, what are we going to do with this money? And it was more than we had ever had. I did a quick total, and the 7 events have raised nearly $32,000. So we make donations to other advocacy orgs. We've purchased those 12 bike racks that I've mentioned earlier. We've purchased and donated 2 pumps and fix-it stations that have been installed in Bussy Woods. We've purchased helmets and rear blinkers and all these things that can make biking safer and make people more visible. And then we support the community through bike rides such as the Ride of Silence and the Elk Grove Community Bike Ride. And then most recently, we're going to be donating some money to the library to improve their bike parking. So this really shows how when there's momentum behind something at the local level, good things can happen. So really, really pleased with the results. Just a couple other notes here as far as my timeline and kind of these formative experiences. 2016 started on a positive note, as was mentioned during the intro. I was recognized by the Active Transportation Alliance with one of their awards, which of course is very much appreciated. The photo on the left shows my family, my siblings and my nieces and nephews at a memorial bench that we purchased because both of my parents passed away in 2016. So March to August of that year was a blur. This photo is from November. If ever you're on the North Branch Trail, just north of the Metro tracks where it goes up and over, stop at the bench and enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet. It's a common destination for me now. So 2016, complete blur. Moving on to 2018, the photo here, and I should mention that my family, we enjoy sarcasm. We're kind of snarky folks. I biked up to Door County for a family gathering and entitled the ride Hauling Ash, because on the back of my rack there in that green bag are my parents' ashes. We chose to scatter their ashes in Door County, and I thought what better way to bring them to a place that they really enjoyed than to ride them there by bike. So Hauling Ash was born, I suppose. And then wrapping up, getting us closer to present day, I assisted a friend with a local election campaign. So this was interesting, right, to see the inner workings of an election campaign and canvassing and knocking on doors, the good and the bad, right, of local politics, and really learn the importance of, or maybe reiterating the importance of being factual, being honest, and being vulnerable. And then another major point in 2019 is with Sarah's help, we developed a chapter of Cycling Without Age. So all of a sudden we were giving people who couldn't otherwise ride a bike rides around the community and in Bussy Woods. And boy, I tell you, to see an adult, you could see the smiles on these women's faces. Their inner child comes out, right? So these were all just kind of momentum builders. Since then, we've trained some pilots and we offer lots of different rides. And just, I personally love seeing the looks from people we pass by, because while you might see something like this in the city, it's not something you typically see in the burbs. So if you're not familiar with Cycling Without Age, recommend you check it out. All right, so that gets us to 2019. Now we're talking major career change. This is my thinker pose. And you can see the question is, should I follow my passion and make it a job, Or should I continue in a relatively comfortable position in the company I was in? Educational publishing is not one of those jobs that appear on the top list of earnings, but it was a comfortable living. I mentioned the advice from my parents while they had passed away. There were still some conversations that I had, right? I got input from those around me, loved ones, family, friends, and then the larger bike community, some of whom are on this call. And it quickly became clear that, I need to take the leap. There was an opportunity to become the executive director of Ride Illinois, one that I really didn't think I could pass up. And as I mentioned before, empowerment came into the story again, and really that faith and that trust that this is the right decision, that would continue with that. So here is early on with Ride Illinois. For those of you who don't know, we are the statewide bike advocacy organization. I have the same shirt on that I had in that photo there. The photo on the left was actually right before I started officially, where I got to meet my 14 bosses. If you work in a nonprofit or if you work in a specific roles, even in for-profit, when there's a board involved, you've got bosses. And I laugh, I say that kind of in jest because they're all wonderful people. But I started in October, fortunate to have worked with Ed Barsotti and Gina Kenny, the staff who were with Ride Illinois at the time, and then draw on my past efforts and experience as well. And I will say Ed was more than willing to share his knowledge, the things he had experienced in nearly 20 years in the role with Ride Illinois. So it was time to hit the ground running. We wanted to learn the inner workings of Ride Illinois, the advocacy landscape, especially at the state level, and really assert myself as the new executive director. So we turned the page and realized there was a heck of a lot to learn, right? And I just kind of brain dumped here. The challenges and the takeaways. You can't go to school to become an advocate, right? There are specific jobs that tend to lead someone to that kind of role. But what better time to learn an entirely new job, an entirely new industry than right as a pandemic's kicking in? And I'm sure you're all tired of hearing the word pivot, but there's a lot of pivoting going on. And I think the other thing worth pointing out in the challenges was we're a small staff, right? So I listed out some of the roles there that all of a sudden I was responsible for, I was sharing with other staff. Quite a challenge. But the takeaways, right? I do ask questions. If I don't know something, I'm not afraid to ask. The building of partnerships, which you'll see in a couple more slides, is really super important. And those partnerships can quickly become friendships. I had my go-to people, either on the board or friends that I would turn to when I needed advice. And then, again, what better way to learn than take some risks, and then some things won't work out, so you learn from the mistakes. And I will mention too, meeting people where they're at, like physically and kind of like emotionally or intellectually. So don't assume anything with folks. Begin with a conversation and be genuine in the approach is, I believe, is an effective way to go about things. And really where this whole session started when Edward and Tim approached me was the fact that I don't have a degree in planning or engineering or public policy, right? I'm a geography. I know maps, I know earth science. So hopefully you find that part of my timeline here to be interesting. I do know that I have tangible, meaningful experience, right? There is no one area of study that can prepare one for a career in advocacy. And I kind of rely on my inner 2-year-old or 3-year-old and ask, well, why, right? Or again, ask questions in order to learn. I think that another main thing here is that people had no reason to know me, especially outside of Chicagoland, right? So I had to be proactive. I had to send email introductions. I had to schedule, meetings and phone calls to get to know people in other organizations, in key organizations such as IDOT, right? Like I had to be intentional about that and start with that first phone call and develop those relationships. I'll mention earlier the importance of developing relationships. And I honestly, I mean, I've had so many wonderful opportunities to meet with people and have meaningful conversations, right? I like this photo was at an event in Addison, yes, in Addison, and just this little girl. I don't even know what we're doing. I think we asked her to share some safety information, and like, how cool is that? That we're able to chat with kids, and maybe this child will become, the next president. Just able to have those interactions. I put on here, I don't know what I don't know. I came from an industry that loved acronyms. Everything was an acronym, but MUT City, ASHTO, NACTO, IDOT, NHTSA, like FHW, like what is all this? So I knew I had to learn. And I had to rely on others. I mentioned the mental Rolodex, which some of the younger folks on this call are gonna be like, what the heck's a Rolodex? It's the way I think I'm good at this, right? I don't have the answers often, but by remembering people and roles and experience that others have, I feel like I'm good at making that connection. So I have no qualms about saying I don't know, right? But hey, go talk to John, right? John's the guy. So I rely on that, and I try to be vulnerable. I like to be humble, right? I want to make folks comfortable when I'm talking to them. And then the idea of following through and then acting with a sense of urgency. I do believe that a sense of urgency can't be taught, that one either has it or doesn't. I feel like I do. I'm pretty good at that. So when you act with a sense of urgency, good outcomes typically result. All right, so a little bit about Ride Illinois. We want to make Illinois better through biking. That's our mission. Our vision will be shared in a new strategic plan that will be announced at the end of the month. It was started in 1992 as a League of Illinois Bicyclists. And you can see it's kind of gone through an evolution, including with the logo. We have 2 full-time staff, 3 part-time, and 15 board members or directors. There's been focus on legislation, policy, planning, education, and awareness over the years. And I have some examples, but in the interest of time, I'm going to continue. Just know that has been the focus now for 31 years. At a statewide level is where we can be most effective. Here are a few of the things that have happened in the last 3.5 years while I've been with Ride Illinois. Our RATs, that's our volunteer program. So regional action teams and folks who are willing to represent Ride Illinois at events or help Ride Illinois out with different things. Ride Illinois Safely is our education program. So that relies on smart cycling from the curriculum from the League of American Bicyclists, as well as the league cycling instructors to offer education courses to folks around Illinois. Let's Ride Illinois is a fun event where we encourage, it starts with one individual in their community to offer a fun, friendly, casual group ride in their community during a 10-day period in September. And this is all available on our website. And then board development has been a real focus and something that has been really rewarding. So I feel like our board is super effective at this point, in part because of my nagging, but also in part because of some of the things that we've been able to experience together. And then legislation such as House Bill 270, which the photo refers to, the photo on the bottom, municipalities no longer have to pay 20% to get bike ped infrastructure built. That would be paid for IDOT. There are some details around that, which we won't get into. But then also learning more about how government works, right? So I have 4 or 5 slides of photos here that have different themes. This one I entitled Advocacy in Action, right? So a lot of times people think of advocacy as going to Springfield or going to DC and hammering their fists and asking for these things. Well, that is true, but our approach is more intentional, and we want this to be ongoing interaction. So photo on the left is from our Illinois Bike Summit, which was last September, that we had a very engaging, empowering, exciting conversations throughout the day. Have met with my representative, Raja Krishnamurthy, many times, sometimes for asks, sometimes just because there are opportunities in town halls. And then we were in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and here's a photo with Representative Sean Casten. Our board member, Cynthia Hoyle, is to my right in the photo, and then another member and friend, Bill Chalberg. So these are all things that are related to advocacy. Education. This is my sweet spot, right? So this is where I got my start, and it's where I'm comfortable. And really our goal is to get more people on bikes for everyday trips. That's kind of what it boils down to. So I'm going to guess that if we polled folks here, no one or very few folks learned safe bicycling in school. And that is something that Ride Illinois hopes to change in the future. In the meantime, we have opportunities such as a bike skills course or a rodeo. This is the photo on the left. That was in Medina. In the middle, I love this photo. I obviously didn't take it, but chatting with a young man at an event in North Lawndale. And then on the right is interacting with the public at that ride in Addison with District 45, including some members of the Elmhurst Bike Club. The awareness piece, right? This can be huge. It's really to be a visible, positive presence that other people want to engage with. So when I'm representing Illinois, Ride Illinois, I want to be approachable. I want to be, having conversations. So on the left, we're at an event on the west side of Chicago for Build Chicago. In the center, attending a Cycle Brookfield meeting to share information about Ride Illinois with their members. And on the right is a picture with Dawn Peach, who has started the International Women's Day Together We Ride movement at a recent expo. And as you can see in every one of these pictures, well, maybe you can't see on the left, we're happy, we're having fun, we're people that others want to engage with. And then the idea of building community, right? So the dictionary defines community as a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. The more people we can engage with and kind of bring under the tent, the bigger the movement. So it's really important to be present and to be out there. Whether we're pedaling under the arch in Little Village on the 2022 Street Love Ride, or meeting with the top center photo, a couple of young women who developed an app called Points that gives you bike directions. I was at the National Bike Summit. My friend Alex on the bottom center, he's a coffee roaster, and we're collaborating with Maple Leaf Coffee Roasters on a coffee that benefits Ride Illinois. And then the photo on the right was a ride from Mount Greenwood on the southwest side of the city to Palos Park on a 95-degree day with stiff winds. Many of the participants hadn't ridden a bike in years and relied on shelters for to have a roof over their head. And we rode 20 miles and we got there to our destination and back. And then at an event in December at the same church, one of the guys that were sitting there yelled out, "Hey, bike guy, are we going to do that ride again?" Right. So yeah, they're now part of our community. So to kind of sum it up, no regrets at all. Right. I don't have any regrets about my career change. I know I have a lot to learn, but hey, this is all part of the journey. We're all on our own journeys. This just happens to be mine. So if we fast forward to present day, get you quickly up to speed on some things that are happening. Friends of Cycling in Elk Grove. You can see some photos here about our night ride and our Cycling Without Age. We aim to strengthen our keys ties with our key partners. That's one of the main things. If you're involved in a volunteer organization, you probably heard the 80-20 rule, which means 20% of the people do 80% of the work, or vice versa. That's very much true in an all-volunteer organization like FCEG. But we're hoping we can make progress despite that. And these are some of the bullet points that we've listed here that we're looking at this year. For quick note, the action teams is just a fancy word for committees, right? So that's one of the things we want to work on, and bring more people into what we're doing. And as far as Ride Illinois, this is way too much text. This I'm sure violates every PowerPoint rule, but I mentioned the strategic plan earlier. That's going to be important because that's going to set our course for the next 3 to 5 years. Know that we're working on a lot of initiatives, and that's a good thing for people who ride bikes in Illinois. I think that's your takeaway here. Another thing when it comes to legislation and policy and funding, the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was passed last year, means there's going to be a big influx, and it's already started, of funds for infrastructure. It's a prime opportunity for your local community and for the state to develop infrastructure for bicyclists, pedestrians, vulnerable road users. If we miss this opportunity, it could be decades before those same projects come up for resurfacing. So add a little bit of pressure, a little bit of sense of urgency. So we're trying to get the word out to get more people engaged in our priorities. That would include yourself. And then personally, I kind of live by this mantra that I can bike there. And then I guess professionally, I'm working on a certificate of nonprofit management that will wrap up. I'll get that certificate in May, which has been very helpful. I do need to work on my work-life balance because work and life can quickly kind of blend together. And then really just try to get places as much as I can by bike, including a visit to my daughter in Urbana. That is definitely on the list this year. But the more I can experience places by bike, I feel the better I can be when speaking on behalf of or to people who are in their communities. So a few lessons learned as we wrap up here. Number one, I kind of mentioned earlier, we really want to focus on the we and the us, not the I or the me. This is not about you, right? This is not about me. Real progress happens when we're united by a shared goal. So these photos, community rides and educational things and just being at events is kind of a grassroots approach, but I feel like it can be, and has been and can be more effective. If we bring people under that proverbial tent, we're casting a wider net, we're also your vibe attracts your tribe, whatever idiom you want to use, that's the idea. So again, not about you, it's about the greater we. Advocacy and really anything that's worthwhile requires patience, persistence, and being present. So the 3 Ps, right? That's how we can enact real change. We as human beings are impatient, but that's okay. Take a deep breath and focus on the wider and the larger goal. We want to meet people where they're at, which means Pastor Singh in the photo on the left, this was after that bike ride of 95 degrees where he wore a full white button-down shirt and long black pants and dress shoes. But that's okay, right? That's how he chose to ride the bike that day. So take advantage of opportunities to meet with people. Oftentimes they're going to be rewarding, enriching, potentially life-altering interactions. And be sure to listen. I'm not a good listener, kind of deep down, but I've worked on that. I like to prefer to pay attention. I have to remind myself of these things and then be genuine in your interactions. And let's have a little fun. You know what? Sometimes bike helmets get stinky and you need to wash them. So why not take a goofy picture of you wearing your bike helmet in the shower, right? Learn to laugh at yourself. Yeah, life is hard in general, but if you inject a little bit of fun, some humor, some humility, people are going to want to engage with you. And so it's a very disarming approach, right? If you're going into a stressful situation, maybe a little bit of humor in the right tone and sense can really be helpful. And then finally, follow that path, including if that path means biking to the IDOT headquarters on your folding bike and being the only bike parked outside. Or folks you're going to meet along the way. The woman in the middle, Rochelle Jackson, wonderful, wonderful woman. Some of you may know who I'm proud to call my friend who's been part of this journey. The folks on the right, Matt and Sid, are just people I've met that I've now stayed in touch with. Go for it. Be a little different. Take some chances. And rewards sometimes require risks. So this is again, follow the path and trust the journey. Now for the shameless plug. I don't work in sales and I'm not good at sales, so I'm not going to give you a hard sell here, but there are ways you can support Right Illinois, your statewide advocacy org, and QR codes, because if you don't have a QR code nowadays in a presentation, I don't think it counts. So feel free to scan any of those codes. If you want to join our email list, our monthly newsletter is in my inbox for final review and will be going out later today or tomorrow. Our bike safety quiz, if nothing else, take our bike safety quiz. Take it as a bicyclist, take it as a motorist. We want to increase the knowledge of people who are out there sharing the same space, and bike safety quiz aims to do that. And if you like what we do, you're welcome to become a member. You can use a code YAYBIKES and you get $10 off your membership. Other things we offer, such as the ride guide, the share the road license plates. And in the end, we really want you to use your bike for everyday trips. That's the goal. More people out on their bikes. It has many, many benefits. So we've got some time for questions, and we'll follow up with anything we can't answer. I think I went a few minutes long, but I'll blame technology on that. And I'll leave the slide up on this one, my contact information. Thank you for taking your time out of your day on this beautiful day. Hopefully you found this interesting, maybe learned a few useful tidbits, and let's continue the conversation. So email, phone, LinkedIn, I look forward to continuing the conversation. So Edward, with that, I'll turn things back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave, for a really engaging and insightful presentation. It's reflected in how much we have retained in the audience. There's still what we started with is still what we have. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
There are a few questions on the chat box. But one question for you from my side is, if someone wants to get a smart cycling lesson,
that's a great
how does
question.
one go about it?
Yeah, if one searches for smart cycling, you'll be taken to the League of American Bicyclists page, or you can go to Right Illinois page, and I'll find a link I'll put in the chat. And there is a way to request a course, or you can see if courses are already scheduled.
Perfect. There's a lot of question mark, especially with younger adults or younger students. There's a lot of questions that they pose about the rules of the road as it pertains to bicycles and mixed shared corridors. So just a question from that perspective. I know you are able to see these questions. I'll read them for you if you can respond to any of them. What is Ride Illinois' view on e-bikes sharing bike paths with bicyclists?
Yeah.
Any specific safety or operational concerns that you've evidenced?
I would say the interest in e-bikes is moving faster than some of the safety or operational aspects of it. In general, we're very supportive. We see that any time that we can, or the society can replace a trip by an e-bike versus a motor vehicle is a win. Win for the individual, win for the community. There's 3 classes of e-bikes. Different entities allow different classes, right? So the one that tends to bring up the most angst is a class 3, which can go up to 28 miles an hour while being pedal assisted. So speed is a concern. I know based on based on conversation at the National Bike Summit that there will be information and curriculum, if you will, or a program about e-bike education it's being developed by the League of American Bicyclists and People for Bikes, and that'll be out soon. So that's an example of kind of advocacy and education catching up with the really strong interest in e-bikes. So it is a concern for sure. And I think we'll kind of have this kind of back and forth of the pendulum. But I think if we fast forward a couple of years, that we'll see that some of that information and the way people operate will have caught up with the technology.
Of course, your friend Tim has thrown a couple of questions. How supportive has Elk Grove Village been in supporting bike improvements in the community? A very local question, I'm guessing.
Tim, I don't know if this is a loaded question. In general, they have been somewhat supportive, right? It's kind of like some of you may have heard the advice: if you have a good idea, make it look like your boss came up with it. It's kind of how we've approached things. The village could definitely be more supportive. We tend to have communicated with the village over the years, asking for different things, sharing feedback from folks. If I had to give a 1 to 10 over the years, I'd give maybe a 6 to 7. Present day, due to some nonsense I won't get into, that number's dipped down a bit, but we will remain forthright and power forward for the future.
Fantastic. Another question from aforementioned Tim. Northwest Municipal Conference has had many bike planning opportunities over the years. Do you work with them on any specific projects?
I have been attending the Northwest Municipal Conference, and that's a council of mayors is another term for a general term. And so, yes, I've been attending those as a resident of the area for the past few years, and of course, representing the two organizations as well. We have helped, when you say specific projects, I would say the effort has more been so on the connectivity in their multimodal plan, nagging, put it in a nice way, the village to make sure they're providing updates of future plans, attending field trips, which are again kind of educational experiences. So Northwest Municipal Conference has the vision; it just needs to be implemented. At the local level. So kind of a long answer to your question, Tim, but there is engagement. Trying to make sure that we're putting some good pressure on to make sure that these plans are actually become reality.
Sure. I'd be remiss if I do not acknowledge some of our former students, more recent ones, and some from way past when. Jason Duba, I see him in the audience. There he is with a question. All right, on cue. In advocacy, do you think it's more important to have a strong relationship with a lawmaker or to have a proposal that's fully analyzed and studied? And I guess I know what the answer is, but I'm going to listen to you.
Yeah, again, this is my I don't have the formal education in those areas, but I don't know that you could go one way or the other. I will say the developing those relationships has to happen. If you kind of walk in, you try to be that loudest voice in the room, demanding things happen, however it's done, right? Email, in person, social media. I don't see that as an effective approach. When I've managed people in the past, and they would come to me with problems, I would say, well, what's the solution? What do you propose to fix that? So to answer your question, Jason, I would say with that established relationship at whatever level, to come into a conversation and to say, here's the problem and here's a potential solution would be an effective way to approach that versus just stating the problem and then leaving it open-ended. So I hope that answers your question. Certainly when there's data or metrics that support a proposal or a potential solution, that can only help matters.
Fantastic. Others that I see, Jane Lynn from Civil Engineering, faculty member and UTC affiliate. There's also Scott Craig, one of our more recent graduates. I see BJ Ryan, one of our former students. I guess the list is long. But I also have to probably give time to IDOT, Jack Cruikshank, if he is still on the call. It's not
I'm here.
very
Hello.
often that you get to attend a webinar and also go back with a bag of money.
This is true.
So,
Yeah. Thank
right,
you,
Jack?
Suraj. Definitely.
Go ahead and
So
make your announcement.
he knows what I was going to say. I was just going to announce that we have released some transit planning dollars, which can include a bike planning element, right? So it's going to have to include some kind of connections to transit. But if you were looking to study bike planning, some kind of bike plan with that transit component, that is something that would be eligible under the current call. It's released for about the next 6 or 8 weeks. There's $2.5 million there. We don't have a set amount for the specific awards, but they usually average about $200,000. So I'm going to post a link to that. I know some of you have seen it already. I've sent it out, but just wanted to let everybody know.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack, as always, for putting the money where you know how that ends, right? So not often do you get money for bike planning projects. So this is a welcome initiative from IDOT. So people that have ideas can take advantage of it. And if so Jack has put up that link. Feel free to follow it and then look for the opportunity and notification of funding opportunity. With that, I think we are to the end of the hour. Dave, thank you again for not just talking about bike advocacy, but in general, there's plenty of lessons that the next generation and even current professionals can take from your talk. And so greatly appreciate the knowledge and giving us a peek into the world of biking. Right.
Wow.
So now I'm going to look for smart cycling lessons for myself.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah. And the pleasure was all mine. I appreciate the opportunity. Edward, Tim, thanks for roping me in. And thanks to everybody who took time out of their day to join today. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you all. And a virtual round of applause to Dave for a job well done. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, everyone.